way it was written, I think it's wonderful, but it needs to elaborate. And my personal feelings is on it is if it would be possible to have in the wording of the victims, the victims of all the plane that were on the planes as Medal of Valor, because when you look at the medal, the way it's written, the whole context of it, I personally believe that the victims should be honored, you know, as long as the first responders, but more to the victims. And my personal feeling on that would be, basically, if you could have an award and give it to in the museum for them.
Right.
And that's just my personal feeling on
Yeah,
that.
no, I appreciate it. I think a couple of things. One is when we initially did this, there was already passed a law that had established the Medal of Valor, which was for public safety officers, which would have included police officers, firefighters, EMT,
Right.
emergency service, emergency service,
Right.
and we wanted those victims of 9/11 who would have been eligible for that federal award to have been given that medal.
Right.
But there was a discrepancy within, not a discrepancy, but there was a discussion or, you know, not an argument for argument's sake, but more just, you know, people who didn't agree that it should be used for that.
Right.
And what was agreed to was to establish a separate medal itself
Right.
for the public safety officers who had been lost in the 9/11 attack, whether it be in Pennsylvania, in
three sides.
all three sides.
Right.
And that's what we did initially, and it was for the people who perished that day. And what this second bill did was to expand it to individuals who had worked on the pile,
Right.
or had worked at other sites and may have been exposed to toxins because of that work.
Right.
That would then, because theoretically,
Right.
maybe half of Lower Manhattan was exposed to the toxins
Right,
on an
right.
ongoing basis, because they lived there.
We
you
can
know, maybe,
understand
you know,
that,
type of thing.
definitely.
And so if I gather what you're suggesting to me is to expand the coverage to individuals who may not have been public safety officers, but worked and,
If I may interrupt, basically just to revise that and amplify on that. And
enlarge, you mean enlarging the
we all know it's part of America's history, and it was a terrorist attack on our soil.
yeah,
And the people that responded were added to this because of the courage and the bravery and everything that went with that. However, in my personal feelings, like I was sharing before, the people that were on the planes were American citizens.
no, yeah.
And that's where the citizens, because this is what I'm trying to bring to you as well, because American citizens responded to the World Trade Center site.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I could be wrong.
That'd be
There
good.
have been, I don't, this particular medal, maybe not, but other awards that have been bestowed upon those individuals and their families
Right.
since then. And there have, I believe Peter King had a bill that was more expansive in terms of honoring all the victims of the 9/11 site.
If I may, just
Yeah.
interrupt. I've interacted with Joe Daniels, president of the museum. I've interacted with Alice Greenwald, president of the museum, and several other members of the 9/11 museum.
Right.
What I would think would be appropriate, in my personal feelings, would be a medal as far as the victims that were on the flights, and put it in a museum. And that would be a way of honoring people that were American citizens that basically we were at war.
Right.
They gave their lives for us.
Yeah, like
You know.
Todd Beamer, like he was
Yeah.
on the
Right.
he was on
So,
the
I
thing.
mean,
people like
I
that.
do think that some of the folks on the plane were eligible for it. Just,
Right.
that some of them were just because of their status.
Right.
I'd have to look into that more, but I'm pretty sure there were. And I think there were efforts to expand it, for instance, to volunteer police officers who were there, or volunteer firefighters who were there as well that
Right.
day.
Right.
Or any of those sites
I mean,
that were.
what's going to happen though? Let's say with the transit workers, I mean, Alan was with transit. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to bring it up himself.
No,
but
I get it.
I'll-
No, that's what I'm saying. I get
I
it.
will
That-
for him, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I got you.
Because maybe.
Well, let
yeah.
me say this. This one's done. This bill's done. But I won't be there, unfortunately, in the
No,
next
I
Congress.
understand.
But I can relate to the members there to maybe start those discussions and look into, because I know there were not only transit folks that worked down there. I mean, you had union men and women who worked down there.
Right, sure.
I know the iron workers and I know the carpenters and
if I,
a lot of those folks were down there.
If I may just share something with you that I have here, if I can.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, are you in the World Trade Center study? I
Yes.
guess you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
If I could just show you.
Are you still working for transit?
No.
No.
So, let me just show you. Let me see.
No, but I recognize the service that everyone did.
No,
I know
but
it wasn't just-
these were like as far as the
agencies.
stations that were involved in.
Yeah.
But, these, if I may, if you read this, these are all those were my orders. And those were the agencies that responded.
So you know what it is? It's so broad. And
You know
it's,
what?
It's, there's a big picture here. you
Yeah,
know?
and they very well be eligible for it. I can't say with certitude,
Yeah.
but we can look into it. We
I
certainly can
mean,
look
what's
into
going
it.
on with the bill right now? It already went through.
Bill passed the House, passed the Senate,
Right.
and is waiting the signature of the president.
I mean, but that doesn't mean that it can never be amended, right? And
No, this
changed?
is it can be.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Well, that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I
mean-
agree. I just won't be there to do it. That's
No,
all
I
I'm saying.
understand,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I just thought it was important that record history for what it was.
Right.
And all the people that responded,
Right.
and all the people that perished.
Yep.
Which is part of that, which I personally believe should be the Medal of Valor given to them.
Yeah.
And the next hurdle would be how do you actually give them the medal? That would be the next thing. So
Yeah.
basically,
Well, this medal is for folks that have
Passed away.
passed away.
deceased.
but
Yeah.
that's the question. Like you would have to go to their families and stuff like that. That's why I was suggesting the museum.
Yeah.
As far as something down the road. That's all.
Right. Right.
I mean,
It's just-
even looking out for the people that died on the planes, they died, you know what I mean? So, where does that leave them? So it can't leave those families and the
Yeah,
people
yeah.
of them out.
No, I don't.
It's
This is not meant to be in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form
No.
disrespectful
Oh,
to any
not
of
at
those
all.
families.
No.
In our attempt to
No.
do this, it was really more out of recognition that police and firefighters and EMT in our society have a certain
Oh, absolutely.
degree of
Absolutely.
public safety, putting their
Absolutely.
lives on the line.
Absolutely.
When we get to go home, they got to run it. When we get to run out of the
Absolutely.
building, get to run in type of thing.
Absolutely.
And that was the primarily the issue behind it.
Yeah.
A lot of folks who were there and weren't killed, but
Right.
very well could have been killed that day,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
are
That's-
dying today because they're dying of cancer.
That guy,
so,
just like I said, the people who were on Flight 93,
Yeah.
that they rushed the,
Right.
Yeah.
where the pilots
Yeah.
were, they stopped.
And the
that
only
could have
nuance
went right
is
into the White House.
if they weren't public safety officers under the
Right.
the definition that was already prescribed by federal law prior to our
Right.
being there. There may
Yeah.
be some issues, and I don't know, I don't pretend to know,
No.
of
Yeah.
expanding that definition for
Right.
other reasons. There
That
may
was
be-
the reason
yeah,
for the visit.
Yeah, there may be other that I'm not aware of,
Okay.
and we'd have to look into why they may just say, well, this is the standard, because it's applied nationally. It's
Right.
not just, this will be the New York standard, this will be the Ohio, the Pennsylvania standard,
Right.
the Washington.
Right.
It's a national standard.
All right, but let me
We'll be happy to look
let
into
me try to bring out, like, let's say if Alan, he was sent to on 9/11. He was told by the mayor. They said all emergency personnel
Yeah.
report to the city, report to the job. He reported. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he
No,
reported.
it's a very good point.
And
I
then
get
he
the
was
point.
down.
Yeah.
He was down in there, and transit were the first ones in because they had to clear paths.
Got to clear it out.
You know what I mean?
May I
So
show you something else?
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the thing
I
is.
do get your point.
He was
I
doing
understand.
like search and rescue.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean? So he was part of that search and
This here
rescue,
is an original
even
paper,
though he's not a
if I may.
public safety
This is an
officer
original
or something.
newspaper,
Right.
September 14,
Yep.
2001.
Yep.
Now turn the pages, right?
Do you want to open it up to
Yeah,
say?
just right here, just turn the
Oh,
pages.
sorry, okay.
One, keep going. Keep going.
It's the next one.
Is that you?
Now look up.
Is that you?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, didn't wear your mask.
Well, that's the reason why was, this goes into all those questions, is I was deployed to City Hall. So
Yeah.
what happened was, on that particular picture, me and my coworker that I was working with, we were at City Hall, and I was 12 midnight that day, 12 midnight to 8 AM, and then I went 12 to 12.
Right.
So what happened was, we were walked over down by the World Trade Center, right from City Hall, because we were deployed to City Hall. So my job with transit was, actually, I was a plumber with New York City Transit, and on emergency response at a transit, 14th Street. So what happened was, at that point, I was deployed to City Hall. And around City Hall are vent gratings, which I was one of many people going into these vent gratings, clearing them out with debris, looking for anything that was possible of anything. And then transit was sealing the site. We did that around the site. That's just touching the iceberg,
Gotcha.
you know? But my thing is actually to honor the people that perished
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah, no, I understand. I understand.
He was above and below,
Right.
both places on 9/11,
So
so.
let me
you know,
say this to you. What I will do is.
you can have that if you
No,
want.
you keep that. Sure, keep saying. What I'll do is I will talk to some of my colleagues.
Okay.
And tell them, that this is, we continue to go look back and see what we can do to
Right.
make even a greater standard. I don't know if it necessarily can be applied to, with respect to the individuals on the plane,
Right.
blanketly. But,
I'll
just,
talk to Todd when he
My,
comes
my,
back.
If they don't have
my
the,
personal, my personal feelings as well, because being part of, out of 14th Street, when I was with transit, out of 14th and 6th.
That's the hub.
That's the emergency response hub. So, these are different things as far as respirator.
right,
My question in a minute, is, we had procedures in place as far as, like emergency response. You had to call in X amount of times throughout the whole day and stuff like that. And, also, these were like affidavits we fill out later on down the road.
Right.
Which, long story short, that's part of what we've been doing.
Yeah.
You know, the mail, when the mail went through, we had the anthrax.
right,
Right.
You know, there was, things that were going on as that was going on.
sure,
So now, when an emergency happens, what's the protocol?
right,
So my thing, which is, I've been saying for years, and now I'm an American citizen, always been, my thing is, what changed as far as policies? For emergencies, that you would know better, I'm just bringing it out, it's rhetorical. As far as policies, what actually is the protocol for, I really don't wanna say it, but it's true, for the next time something should ever happen.
right.
What is the protocol?
Right.
State by state. These are the questions and answers that you would know better.
Well, I think each state, certainly after 9/11, the federal government on down,
Right.
developed, recognized the weaknesses that existed. I
Right.
think.
They didn't have the right
You-
masks either.
No, well, a lot of things. I mean, but even in New York State, after 9/11, you had the creation of the Department of Homeland Security. You had the largest entity in government today is Homeland Security. And then on the state level, you had the creation of a Department of Homeland Security for the state, and on down to the city, that had their offices were at, 2 World Trade or World Trade Center buildings, or some World Trade, and that was demolished. So the notion or idea of being prepared, well, were we really as prepared as we could have been or should have been?
Well-
And all those protocols changed
They
after
did.
that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just bringing it to your attention.
And then something they still continue to work on is communication, because of the lack of being able to communicate properly with
Right.
all entities involved. Some who knew that the buildings were going to collapse, some didn't know the buildings were going to collapse. The interoperability of radios, for
Yeah,
instance,
and the
is
radios
still
weren't
something
working
that
right.
continues to be worked on.
And it's evolving, which is all part of that question.
Yeah, which is also one of the reasons why the spectrum changes were made in order to free up spectrum for
Right.
emergency services to make those
And
communications.
that's, that, I hate to put it this way, but something tragically had happened. So to make a positive out of something
Right.
is what I'm trying to bring up in
Sure.
limelight of
Yeah,
this. So
yeah.
when you look at the looking backwards to look forwards, in my personal feelings, is if you have conversations with all people that were there, you know, and get a different perspective
Right,
and understanding because they were there.
sure.
You know, and as far as that, when you understand as far as how many people were there, it's massive.
Sure.
You know, you get this wholeheartedly. You know, so this goes down the line. So as far as first of all protecting the soil,
Right,
American, you know, United States of
Right,
America, you know,
right.
protecting the soil, and then also people that are responding. What's the protocol going in? What policies have changed?
Right.
You know, that's
Well,
my personal.
there have been huge policy changes, obviously. I mean,
That's my personal.
yeah,
Feeling.
it has happened. I mean,
Okay.
can you say with certitude, you know, that you've thought of everything they possibly could do to, you know, like even see what's happening just today in terms of pipe bombs, you know, using the
right.
U.S. mail,
Right.
not using metal, but using, you know,
This is
modified plastic,
why I'm bringing this to your attention.
things of that nature
Yeah.
that you know, the trying to
living in
always
a
step
different
one
world.
step ahead of what the bad guys are thinking, so to
Right.
speak, you
Right.
know. And that's what you have the FBI and the CIA and other intelligence
agencies.
communities
Right.
and national defense, you know, doing, basically. We have to have some faith in those men and women and their
That's
ability to do
all
that.
part of
You
this.
can- They may not always get it right,
No,
and
no.
and there will be mistakes made, but, and you can't guarantee that, you know, September 11th doesn't happen again or something like it, it'd be horrific. But, you know, we live in a very dangerous world. I
Yeah,
think, you know.
but the thing is, do we have a plan for that too? We need to know, as being Americans, we need to know if, is it an emergency, do they have a procedure? Do they have a plan and, you know, installed now?
Yeah.
That, I mean, because before that, it was all confusion, there was
Yeah.
all things going on. They didn't even have the proper masks for the guys.
Right.
You've seen a lot of the police were wearing paper masks.
Well, not only that, they were told
I
that
mean-
the air was clean,
Well,
Yeah.
clean enough to breathe without the
mean,
mask.
yeah.
This goes into
Right.
all these questions. You know, you asked
Yeah.
me a moment earlier
Right.
about like my respirator. I always wore the white Tyvek suits. I did what I had to do, and then once I was done, I had my masks on, half full face mask for respirators. The
Right.
cartridges are only good under OSHA regulations for X amount of hours under normal conditions of a normal respirator cartridge. I went through, my cartridges should have been good for 16 hours. I went through them in 3.
Well,
You know, and then that's why when you saw the picture in the paper, I took my white
'Cause, yeah.
thing off and I had a white
Right.
mask.
yeah,
So that in itself is part of this, you know, expanding forward. So, you know, we can learn from it,
yeah.
you know, and that's the reason why I stopped down. you
No,
know.
I appreciate you coming. I think we have learned, I don't, you know, as time goes on, you know, things become lax to some degree as well, and, you know, that's normal, I guess, to some degree, but, I think, you know, the protocols at airports has changed, you know, the protocols, on Lower Manhattan and where you can and
Right.
go freely, you know,
Right.
you can't get to City Hall anymore, you can't get close to Wall Street. you know,
When we learned from, you know, tragedy, you know,
Well, that's the change in protocols that's
it's-
taking place too.
Right.
you know, it's ironic that we have to learn that way,
Yeah.
but it's good in a way because now we know how to safeguard our people, you know, and
Yeah,
safeguard
more.
our officials too, like you guys, you know, with the attacks that are going on, these terrorist
Yeah.
attacks, you know, we have to have better protocol put in place to protect ourselves and
there is
others.
something that
Yeah.
actually, this office is less secure, unfortunately, than my Washington office. 'Cause
Right.
my Washington office, any mail has to go through a mail center first and is sifted through,
Sure.
is gone through in a protocol. That doesn't really exist here in the same way. The only thing we have here, we've had people come up here and examine our security protocols.
This is
And our safety
how,
firm and
why I
remake
brought that
staff.
to your attention in the context of all this, because of, as simple as it sounds, we had protocols as far as we were given orders on what to do.
Well, after the attack at the baseball field last year.
Oh, yeah.
I was very vocal down in Washington saying we need to do more to protect our local staffs. And they had
Yeah, we had
they
some
came
come
here,
in.
went through it, and they saw a lot of problems. But there's not a lot you can do in a pre-existing building like this. It's not built for it. What we did put was a security buzzer.
I got a call from the iron worker. He can't make it because he's very sick from 9/11, but he wants to ask you something. Okay, Keith, I got the congressman right in front of me, so
Hey,
ask
Keith.
him what you need. It's Keith LeBow, he's an iron worker.
I just walked in the door. Give me 1 second.
He's sitting right here, so just, we're here talking with him, and, I'm recording it, so just to let you know. And, see, Keith was an iron worker. He'll tell you his story. I'm not gonna speak for him.
Right.
But, he's very sick, he's got a lot of issues going on.
Right.
And, even my friend Alan, besides being there, he's got issues going on with his health. They also have anxiety too, and they have when you go through war, you have PSC, what do they call that?
PSD,
Yeah, so,
PTSD.
this is what we deal with a lot of the guys. And I've been down to Washington many times, lobbying for the Zaroga bill.
Zadroga, right, yeah.
Zaroga bill for at least 8 to 10 years now, so. All right, Keith, when you're ready, you got the congressman right in front of you. He'll answer your question, try to,
Good
Hey.
afternoon, Congressman Crowley. How you doing today?
Good, Keith, how are you?
I felt better. You guys literally just caught me walking in the door from. I had to go down to a medical facility to go and get a new CPAP mask
Okay,
because that's one of my issues. You can actually look my name up if you do Google and type in Keith LeBow, you'll see me come up.
okay.
I am with I know John Field. You probably
Yeah,
know who he
sure,
is.
sure. I know, John.
John knows me. John, I've been with John since March of 2008. I've done about 33 trips to 34 trips to D.C.
Right.
To fight for Zadroga.
I'm sure our paths have crossed.
Probably.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you was, when I saw the bill that you created for the medal,
Yeah.
it said public safety officer. Now, I'm not 100% sure of what a public safety officer is. I was thinking that's probably cops and firefighters.
It's a federal standard that was established prior to the enactment of the law for the definition of it. I don't have it in front of me here, but there is is this it here? I don't know.
yeah, that's the bill right here.
Yeah, no, I know, but in terms of defining what a public
Okay.
safety officer
Oh, all
is.
right. I wrote
My general understanding, although
I looked it
I don't
up.
know if it's entirely accurate, it would be police officer, fire officer, emergency service technician, EMS, or it could be Capitol Police. It could be a Pentagon
Right.
personnel. It could be transit personnel, or if designated as a public safety officer,
Right.
that would fall into that category. Did you need me?
I see. So it's not open at all to civilians.
No, yeah,
makes
that's correct. My understanding is not. I was telling to the two gentlemen
Right.
here that prior to the creation of this particular medal, there was created a medal about a year before the 9/11 incident that created the Medal of Valor for public safety officers, Medal of Valor, and it was a medal for again, defined by the federal law what a public safety officer
Right.
is, sort of like giving the Medal of Honor to military personnel. You follow?
Yes.
And so that
Yes.
was what it was created for, and a big, strong push to make the public safety officers who had perished in 9/11 the first recipients of that medal. And there was this agreement among some of the folks who were involved in the creation of the medal, including Senator Warren and others who had created that medal, which I had voted for in the creation of, prior
Right.
to that, and giving the first medal to them. And the agreement that was reached was that we would create a medal specifically for the public safety officers who had perished in 9/11 on 9/11. Does that make sense to you?
Yes,
you
it
follow?
does.
And that's where that came from. Peter King, I believe, and I don't know where it's at or what happened with the legislation, but I believe was creating a medal for every person who had perished on 9/11.
Right.
And I'd have to follow up, and I honestly, not to throw it on Peter, I just don't recall off the top of my head. I have here the definition. An individual serving in a public agency in an official capacity with or without compensation as a law enforcement officer, as a firefighter, as a chaplain, or as a member of a rescue squad or ambulance crew. It goes on to say an employee of a federal emergency management agency who's performing official duties. And then it goes on to what those duties may entail. So what
I mean, does that,
Alan, what Alan had suggested to us, because he basically is saying to me that he was ordered down as a consequence of his employment. He was ordered down by the mayor of the city of New York to go down to the site to do cleanup and to
Do
rescue recovery first, and then
which
clear the
was-
tracks and stuff like that. Right?
Which was part of being an American citizen.
No, I understand. No, I get that. But you also
Right.
right,
you're on orders. It's like a cop. You're gonna
right.
you're going down there because this is your detail.
Right.
You got to go down, right? Type of thing. And
It's like being drafted. You know,
Yeah,
you're being
and-
drafted, you know.
and Keith,
you-
I don't know if that in of itself would meet the standard of the law that was, again, the standard that was written prior to the passage of this amendment, I guess you could say, of the original law itself. And yeah, sorry, Keith.
My issue is there's a vast segment that once again is being slighted that, and Phil mentioned what I am. I'm a New York City ironworker. I'm a lather,
Yeah,
if you know what that is.
I do.
I'm a lather. There's EMS, EMT. Then there's the building trades. There's FBI, ATF,
read those.
National Guard. All those people went down there. All of us were there.
Yeah,
And I feel like we're all being slighted, because everybody's saying, because I hear this all the time, and it kind of upsets me that I hear this,
right.
and it's because of the media. Every time somebody says, hey, this guy was at ground zero, and the first words out of their mouth is, are you a cop or a firefighter? And I actually tell them no. And when I do it, I laugh. I go, no, I had a real job. I'm a New York City ironworker.
Right.
See, stuff like that.
I know. I went to high school. I went to high school with Jim Mahoney, so I know. I know who you guys are. I know what you guys
Yeah,
do.
it's even with when they want to do an interview and they're down there, and I'm like, I'm bringing out to some reporters, hey, my friend was an MTU worker. He was
No,
there.
these- I
He was
mean,
there on 9/11.
the
This
iron
iron
workers
work.
were
And
actually-
you know what they do? You know what they try to do? They say, oh no. Oh, we gotta get an interview with a fireman and a cop.
What the ironworkers
And they
did
push-
was actually
it's
help
kinda like,
the rescue and recovery because they knew what they were doing in terms of structural stuff and,
Right.
and being able to lift the things that cops and firemen couldn't do. That I'm
Right.
able to do that. So
Sure.
I'm very
Yeah, because my role when I was down there, I was a volunteer.
yeah.
I did search, rescue, and recovery the first 100 hours.
Right.
Which
So
was enough to earn me a slow, painful death.
yeah. No, I understand that.
You can actually hear my heavy breathing right now.
Yeah.
That's just from me moving around and doing stuff.
Right. So I think what's important for you to know, Keith, as well, is that there is a federal standard, there is a federal benefit to public safety officers that is not available to citizens upon death. For instance, if they die in the line of duty.
Right.
Keith, if that makes sense to you, I don't know if you understand that.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, no,
and
believe me, I understand.
and this would recognize that they died in that act for the purposes of receiving those benefits as well. So there are just certain standards that there would have to be, it would have to be a decision of the Congress to expand that beyond, and it would have implications beyond 9/11.
Amend and revise.
Yeah, and by the way, Keith, just so you know, I do recognize and I appreciate the efforts that were made by everyone
Right.
in the cleanup and who've suffered since then. and I have nothing but the utmost respect for you and
Yeah.
everyone else. So this is not an attempt to slight in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's really there were some legal issues involved in terms of
Right.
this for the folks who died that day, who were public safety officers,
Mm.
who were eligible for certain death benefits, and for individuals who have passed since then, who may or may not have been eligible for those benefits because they didn't actually die that day.
Mm.
You know?
Did anybody
I don't-
ever,
you know,
did you ever bring this up to President Trump? Do you ever get to talk to him?
Honestly, I'll be honest,
bring this
I
up?
don't have much of a relationship with the president, so I really can't tell you
well-
that I have. No,
Maybe
it-
things will change, but I'm just saying. you
But,
know,
but
because it's like-
Keith, I also think that then, you know, that Alan and you have raised some good points. That I unfortunately will not be in Congress come January. So,
that I know. I've been following what's going on.
but what I'd be happy to do, as I've said, is raise this with my colleagues before I leave. In particular, a couple of colleagues in particular, Kathleen Rice, Tom Swazi. And some other folks who I think, Jerry
Carolyn
Nadler,
Maloney.
Carolyn Maloney, others who I think would be interested in Dan Donovan,
I mean, you
expanding
got a lot
the
of
opportunity.
unity.
Yeah.
Everybody's unified with this. It's
It may not be this particular medal,
Right.
because again, it was produced, the original concept of the Medal of Valor was for public safety officers as defined by the federal law.
and only the people
But
that passed away too.
Yes,
Couple did.
Yeah, because it's
So-
like the living guys. If you lived,
you got that benefit. It's
Yeah.
like, you know,
All right.
God bless you. But I do and look, and I
Yeah.
said, I think that they're, especially for iron workers, carpenters, you know, and,
All the
you know,
trades.
trades folks who went down there and they did it, not, as you said, not because they had to go even, they went down because they were Americans, they wanted to help.
American
Yeah.
citizens, right? They
You
were
in your
great.
particular case, you want to do for both reasons. You're an American citizen, you wanted to help, but two, you were ordered down by your superior officers.
And you
that's
can't
why
do
I got
No,
involved
no,
too. Because my friends were all infected. You know, I lost a lot of friends on 9/11.
Yeah.
A fireman, Stephen Olson, I grew up with. Other friends, I live in Staten Island. My neighbor behind me.
It goes into
Yeah.
a lot of levels where, like I mentioned earlier, what has changed.
Yeah.
You know, because this is actually setting a standard for what has been happened at this level, at this situation. Because once those buildings were hit, we're at war.
Yeah.
So we all banded like this.
Right.
Every American stood shoulder
No, I
to
agree,
shoulder.
I agree.
Right.
And that was something that I will always remember.
The
doubt,
unity,
no doubt.
the unity that
And
was
it-
involved.
and so again, just to
All right,
bring
great.
you back
Oh,
around,
thank you. This
there
great.
is within the federal law, there are, when a police officer is killed on the line of duty,
Right.
there is a special federal benefit that they and their family get that is not open to the average citizen.
Right.
That's just the,
Yeah.
so I think part of that
They
is
put their
too.
life on the line.
Yeah,
Well,
it's,
we
it's a little bit of a
understand
different
that.
kind of a job in
Yeah.
some respects, you know, that,
Yeah.
although iron workers put their lives on the line,
Yeah,
because they did,
sure.
you know, the society has said,
Right.
Right.
this is a special category of
Right.
workers, so to speak, you know, so.
We
Just
understand.
Just to
Yeah,
give you a
'cause,
little.
one of the things also I'd like to mention, Congressman, is the other reason I mentioned civilians
Yeah,
is because, you know, I lost 16 friends at Ground Zero. I found 4 of their bodies.
jeez.
But I also lost a Union brother on Flight 93.
Uh-huh,
And you know, because he was one of the people that fought back.
right,
To me, I think that man posthumously deserves, along with Todd Beamer and all the others,
yeah,
they all deserve the medal. And out of one of the friends that I found, this guy, his name is Damian Meehan. He has brothers that are both cops and firefighters. He was working in his office. He made sure that all the rest of his coworkers got out of the building safely, and he lost his life. He deserves a medal because he literally called his brother up and said, "Look, you know, we're in this situation. I'm at the trade center. I'm just going to make sure everybody gets out, and I'll see you guys later."
right,
We found him between the second and third floor on that landing in between floors. There was like 13 people. We found them all. They were trapped in a pocket, suffocated to death.
right.
Wow.
He gave his life to get the rest of his coworkers out. I think he deserves a medal. See, that to me, that's why I was asking about this medal.
Right.
Shouldn't it be open to like some of the civilians that actually committed such acts of heroism?
You know, Keith, I agree with you in the sense that I don't think we will ever know the true extent of the heroism that was displayed that
right.
day. You know, I lost a cousin there, and I tell you know, whether a public service safety officer or not, the notion, the idea that my cousin John was there, I wonder what he was doing. What was he thinking when the building collapsed around him? I'm thinking, John was there consoling people. He was there, like, you know, doing that. I don't know what else to think, you know. And I imagine there were many great men and women there that did extraordinary things during the most harrowing and most difficult times and moment in their life. It was their moment, and we'll never know the full extent of it. We'll never know, you know. But listen, I do. Yeah, sorry.
There's also two people, and these two are Port Authority police officers.
Yeah.
I would like to recommend they get it.
If they are police
Port
officers,
Authority, and they died at ground zero.
they would have gotten it. They would have qualified for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Keith.
Yeah, I'm listening.
Yeah, they already qualified for it.
Okay, but I don't know if I'd have to find out if they got it. If not, I'd like to make
So
sure.
let me. If they did qualify. They went through this pretty.
Tense.
They went pretty beyond. I know that there was, you know, folks that were even
Right.
public peace officers that were actually they tried to be as
Right.
beyond as they possibly could and be inclusive as they possibly could under the letter and spirit of the law, basically.
Right.
But those officers, if they were Port Authority and they passed, they definitely got it.
Right.
I guarantee it. I have the. You can't see it, but I have a cross from 9/11 that was given to me by the Port Authority Police Department for
Right there.
reference.
Look at that. That's made from the steel of the
Yeah,
World
there's
Trade
three
Center?
items there. There's the large cross, the smaller cross, and the twin towers there. That twin tower is made of that. It's been painted, but it's also made from the tower.
We had a priest, the priest that came down. He had it on.
I'm sure I had an iron worker cut it. Trust me. I know I did. I can see by the detail. So
We love Keith, man. You know, I met Keith so many years ago, you know, from coming and being part of the 9/11 and the Zoroka bill being passed. And I made so much friends with that. I got so much, I've been educated so much about what's going on because of these guys, you know. I'm there for them.
before I do, let me just say this. You know, Keith, I'll say this to you as well.
Right.
As much as I think everyone should be recognized for all the good works that were done, the most important thing in my mind, and it may not necessarily be in yours, in mine, is that the health care and the benefits and the death benefits are there.
That's one thing I made sure of.
Yeah.
Because I went with John.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, the bill was originally aimed towards cops and firefighters,
Right. Right.
Right.
and it was Elliot Engel from the Bronx
Yeah.
that actually said cops, firefighters, and iron workers. And I'm not bragging, I'm just telling you the truth. The reason he said that is because I was going with John and started to say, hey, don't you think that you should open this bill up to everybody?
I do indeed. Yeah. That's why when the people died in 9/11, it wasn't just the cops and firefighters who got the benefits from it. Anyone, if you worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, if you worked in Windows on the World,
Right.
You know, my thing is, I thought anybody who had worked there that died from that needed to have their families covered for that. You know, so.
It expanded so much, you know what I mean? And, you know, it all had to do with a lot of the guys like yourself, Keith, and Alan, that, you know, supported and lobbied to get that bill passed.
It's widely believed that because of the extent of the levels of cancer that have been developed by exposure to the toxins, that this fund will run out by 2020.
Yeah,
That's
that's
also what
what
I
we
wanted to
wanted
ask
to
you.
bring out.
And so
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear from John
that comes
about going down there.
right, and that's what comes to my point about. I appreciate the medal part of it too, and I understand it.
Right.
But the most important thing in my mind is the is the medical benefits and
People
the death
that are still
benefits.
alive, that are
Right.
suffering. They're all
So-
suffering.
And I think, I do believe, although I won't be there, I do believe that the Congress will rise to the occasion at the right time. And I guarantee you this,
Right.
Keith, I will do whatever I can in my capacity, maybe not as a voting member of Congress, but as someone who will use my voice
Right.
to see to it that that is extended to ensure that everyone who was exposed and who is suffering now, and that they and their families are compensated for that.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
There you go, man. Well, thank you,
Yeah,
Keith.
because
Thank
I
you,
ju- I
Keith.
just
you know,
wanna-
it's just like, you know, Alan and Phil that are there in front of you. They'll tell you that for me, you know, I'm just one of many.
Right.
But in my specific case, every day is a battle
Yeah.
because they've seen how I look. I mean,
Right.
we went to D.C. We were invited by another politician, and I literally had to go home before them because I could not stay any longer.
Right.
It was getting too bad.
Right.
I literally had to go and take a cellar
Yeah.
to get home
Same.
quick.
Yep,
Gotcha.
and the
Right.
same thing happened
If I would
with.
have stayed with them,
Right.
if I would have stayed with them, I would have ended up in the hospital.
Right. Right. God
And
bless you.
I am tired of that.
Yeah.
I
It
didn't
happens.
see it, but thanks.
It happened It happened with Al. Al came down to Washington on one occasion, so I went up there with my camera and my tripod, and I set up and I filmed the, what they were talking about with the Zaroga bill, the reauthorization. It was at that time because, with the bill, it had to be reauthorized, so we had to fight for that too. So Al came up with me. He drove all the way down there, and when we got down there, Al's like, "Look, I can't breathe." I was like, "What am I supposed to do?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna go up there anyhow, and I'm gonna do what I need to do."
Sure.
You know what I mean? If it's all right with you, rest here, and I'll come. And Al couldn't make it, man. It's just like, these guys are really suffering, man. They have the health issues, and they have, it's like a war. What is it? That condition? What is it called?
Post-traumatic stress
Post-traumatic
disorder.
stress disorder. Yeah, I don't have that. but-
However, if I may, once again, when those buildings were hit, we were at war.
Yeah, we were.
We were war.
Sorry to cut in, but we were literally
Right.
front line
Yeah.
civilian responders
Right.
at that moment.
Right.
Even though you guys were working in the trades, you
In
were.
my role of
Yeah.
what I was responsible for, I was a plumber with New York City Transit Authority. Transit, I rolled out of 14th Street. We had 2 miles of trucks going in the aftermath. I was on the vac truck, which is a high-powered vehicle for the plumbers.
Okay, thanks.
And what that vac truck does is does multiple things for the plumbers, long story short. It is a very good tool for the plumbers.
Right.
That being said, we were all over, above, and below that site. We were
Debris.
actually, the tunnels were flooding. So when you heard about the bathtubs,
Yeah.
there was actually, we were testing from different multiple people that I heard through inside of transit. They were testing the water content because they weren't sure where the water was coming from.
Right.
So when you saw that ramp every day
Yeah.
of the anniversaries, if you look to the left, there was 2 holes in the walls. Those were water mains that were blown out, dumping into the tunnels.
Right.
And we were watching for water as far as Canal Street.
Wow.
Transit was
Yeah, 'cause,
locking the tunnels in with 3 feet of concrete poured, locking
So
the
that
tunnels.
far up, wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
is
because
what this is what I'm trying to
the
bring to you.
western wall of the
Right.
trade center.
Yeah, the
when
Surrey
you look
wall.
down where the ramp was, that's only 3 feet thick.
Oh, wow.
So when you look at today in the museum, because I showed a couple of people not too long ago, there's a blue valve and it actually illustrates that. But transit was trying to we were above and below. So what you saw, transit had a pumping train pumping water out, which was actually coming in on the tunnels of 109. I bring this all to you because I've seen the devastation from above and below. I've seen what some people never want to see.
People.
I've seen too much stuff, and I'm just saying that because, like I said earlier, my dad was United States Navy submarines.
Yeah.
he shared a lot of things with me, which gave me a lot of courage to do what I had to do. Long story short, as an American citizen, we're here to, and we banded all like brothers and sisters.
Right.
And whoever was doing what, whoever was above and below and doing different things, they have different capabilities. I just want to see down the road that things change. You know, because from a first responder point of view, just imagine if you were me and I were you. Just think that one out for a second. Because now if you were me and I were you, you can now relate to my perspective and where I was and what I was involved in, and vice versa. Because it's up to, you know, congressmen, senators, and
To fight for you.
all the elected officials
Right.
to change this. You know,
Well,
and
that's what they're here
why-
for, these guys.
That's why it makes sense to learn from everyone. You know, years ago, many
Right.
years ago, I called the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library because I was changing my address from my personal information from Staten Island, Jersey. But I use this as an illustration. I was speaking to somebody over the phone. I said, if possible, could you humor me for a minute? The person goes, okay, fine. I says, you know, if possible, maybe. I said, have you ever watched a giant or a jet game? And the person goes, well, yeah, kind of, you know. I said, well, to be honest with you, in the very beginning of when they're flipping a coin and then now the cameras are panning around, that's 80,000 people that are in my situation. When you put the picture to the face and a stadium of people, that puts it in perspective. That's why I said that.
Right.
And that's why,
No, I get you.
because now it's like, wait a second, you know, now.
That's
now
what
it's-
was there, like,
It's
you know?
just when you hear numbers,
what you're trying to
you know, to certain people, it's like pick a number out of the hat, but when you put a face to a number, and I've said to Phil through years, you know, over time, I said, when you go to the 9/11 museum and you
Right.
look up above, I said, there was X amount of thousands of people killed. I said, walk around. I said, when you put pictures to the face,
Sure.
it actually stops you in your tracks. So, and that's why, in a humbly way and a respectful way out of the family members, I just came, in my own perspective, say, you know, they need to be heard from, you know, and such as the first responders as well. You know, and the medal is just a way of a good gesture. And that's why I was suggesting, even if you displayed something in the museum.
Gotcha.
For the
And
other
that was
guys, for the other guys,
Okay.
for the other men.
Let me see what we can do.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Keith.
This is so awesome
Thank
for
you,
you
sir.
guys.
Appreciate it.
I commend you so much, Mr. Crowley.
Guys are away.
Thank you very much for your time and your,
Appreciate it.
all the efforts, you know,
Thank you.
you did a great thing. We're not here because we're here because we commend men
No, I
like you,
appreciate it.
you
I
know what I
appreciate
mean?
it.
Because if it wasn't for you to initiate these things, it would never even got the ball rolling. It wouldn't
Right.
have got started. So
I
you're
appreciate
doing
that.
wonderful things for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Alan. Thanks a
Thanks
lot.
for your service, you know,
Thank you.
to our
Thanks.